I really don't know where to start, so I'll just start with the best. My husband and I met when I was 19, young, dreamy, and completely convinced of eternal love. He was 3 years older than me, calm, mature, and had a way of making people believe that everything would be okay. We got married after 2 years of dating, when I had just finished school, and he had a stable job in the construction design industry. For the past 6 years, our life seemed like a gentle and warm picture. We have 2 children, a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy. I am 6 months pregnant with our third child. Although I am sometimes tired, I have never felt unhappy. There are evenings when I look at the children sleeping soundly, my husband lying beside me with his hand gently on my belly as if listening to the baby kick, and I think, I am truly blessed. 2 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. My mom died when I was 12, so my dad was everything to me, the person I turned to when everything fell apart, the person who never complained despite sacrificing his life to raise me. Dad had a big smile, the kind that made you feel safe just by seeing it, and his hugs were the only place in the world where I could feel the broken pieces of my heart being put back together peacefully. Even when I became a wife and a mother, I was still the little girl who rested her head on his chest and listened to his steady heartbeat like a lullaby of time. I tried to balance everything, taking care of my small family, while also arranging to visit my father regularly. My husband was always supportive. He told me, "I will take care of you and the children. Just rest assured to take care of your father." Whenever I returned home after a long day at the hospital, exhausted both physically and mentally, he always waited for me with a hot meal or simply a gentle look. My best friend, Natalie, has been with me since diapers. Her mom and mine were childhood friends. Our families lived together almost every summer and every holiday. Natalie was the kind of person who could tell what you were thinking with just a glance. We promised each other, even when we get married and have kids, we'll still be half-sisters. She was the one I called right after I got the bad news from Dad's doctor. I didn't go home. I didn't go straight to the hospital. I drove like a maniac to her house, and Natalie held me for 3 hours without saying a word, just kept quiet and let me cry like a baby. At that time, I thought, if there was such a thing as a soulmate in the form of a friend, then Natalie was that person. My life, despite its challenges, has a certain calmness. I believe in my husband, believe in my best friend, and believe that no matter what happens, we are a strong family. Little did I know that in just a few months, everything would fall apart beyond repair. Everything started to get heavier, since the doctor told me and my father that time is running out, only a matter of months. I couldn't believe my ears. Looking at the strong man who had once raised his children alone, now emaciated, lying on the hospital bed, vaguely asking me, "Why did you come back so soon?" While I had just sat next to him for an hour, my heart felt like someone was squeezing it. My husband was the one who picked me up whenever I felt like falling. He still took care of the 2 children, still cooked, still said, "I can't replace your father, but I will always be the support to keep you from falling." Those words, at that time, were the only spiritual salvation I had. He was also the first person to suggest that I quit my job. You don't need to work any harder. Just staying home to take care of your father and children is enough. I can handle it. I'm not the type to give up on responsibilities, but after a few weeks of thinking about it, especially when I found out I was pregnant with my third child, I decided to stop, quit my job, and devote all my time to my dad and the kids. Natalie was the first to know. She hugged me and smiled softly. So, you're officially a full-time mom, taking care of 3 kids. Then she winked and teased, I don't know whether to admire you or worry about you. I laughed along, not minding. During that time, I noticed a few small things, like Natalie started coming to my house less often. Before, she would come by every few days, bring cakes or simply a cup of milk tea, play with the kids and chat with me all day. But recently, she often texted me, busy, or tomorrow, or meet at the old shop for convenience. I was also busy with my dad and the kids, so I didn't think much of it. My husband sometimes comes home later than usual. He says he's taking on extra projects since I quit my job, so he has to take care of the finances more. I believe him. He's never given me any reason to doubt him. In the evenings, when I'm exhausted from spending a day at the hospital and then coming home to take care of the 2 kids, he still bathes the kids, reads them stories, and rubs my back to help me sleep. He's so caring that I sometimes feel guilty for not being able to share with him as much as before. Once, just once, I saw Natalie leave a jacket in the trunk of my car, an expensive designer jacket I had never seen her wear. I returned it, and she hesitated for a moment before saying, "Oh, I borrowed it from my sister. I'm going to an interview." I didn't ask any more questions, just smiled and wished her luck. I was never suspicious, and I never thought that my close sister had anything to do with her husband. I kept thinking, when someone is good to you, loves you, cares for your family like he is doing, then there is no way he can be a traitor. Even when I put my head on his shoulder, sobbing because my father forgot my name, he wiped my tears, patted my back gently, and said, "I'm here. Don't be afraid." I believed. So much that I didn't realize that the side projects he mentioned might not be company projects, but a different kind of project, more ruthless, more furtive, more treacherous. And Natalie, my friend from diaper days, gradually called less, asked less, and every time she appeared, she wore dark lipstick and dressed in a way that was inappropriate. I even complimented her. "You look on top these days." She just smiled and didn't answer. Little did I know that I was standing in the middle of a storm at that time, and I was just blindly clinging to what was left of a beautiful belief. Just a few weeks later, I would wish I hadn't been so trusting. That morning started like any other. My little boy had a slight cold and had been coughing all night, so I stayed up most of the night keeping an eye on him. When the sun came up, I was so tired that my eyes were stinging, but I still tried to carry him out to the living room to let him breathe easier. I heard the alarm clock in the bedroom ring loudly. It was my husband's phone. He usually set 3 or 4 alarms to make sure he wasn't late for work. I walked in and found him still fast asleep, his face turned to the wall. I gently turned off the first alarm, then shook his shoulder. "Wake up, it's time." He turned over, his voice sleepy. "I asked for the morning off today. I worked too late last night." Then he pulled the blanket over me, not waiting for me to react further. I nodded, turned back to the phone to turn off the remaining alarms. Then I saw it. A message appeared on the lock screen from Natalie. Not a contact name like N or some nickname, but clearly, Natalie. As if trying not to hide. The content line was only 1 sentence, but it was like a punch straight to the chest. "I guess because you haven't seen the pregnant woman going crazy in front of my house, you haven't said anything, right?" I stood there, frozen. My whole body was cold. At that moment, I didn't know if I was dreaming or living. I held the phone. My hand was shaking so much I almost dropped it. No password. Never set one. and in the 2 seconds before I reached for the lock, I held out hope that this was some kind of mistake, that Natalie was being sarcastic, that maybe she was texting another man, someone other than my husband. But when I opened the message, everything fell apart. The chat history is still intact. Not a single message has been deleted. Starting from nearly 4 months ago, right around the time I quit my job and officially became a full-time homebody, while I was struggling with my dad's illness, with morning sickness, with 2 little ones who needed their mommy every minute, they started. At first, it was just random sentences like, "I miss you. It's been so long since I touched you." Then gradually it became clear conversations about secret meetings, about the undisguised physical touches, about the times he came home late for work. I scrolled down, reading each line like a torturer. Natalie once wrote, "She still thinks you're a good sister. Do you feel guilty?" And my husband replied, "No, because if she was still a good wife, I wouldn't have to look for you." Another line, Natalie sneered, "Your birthday is coming up, so I'll book a room now. If your wife gets suspicious, just say I'm planning a surprise for her." I laughed. A lifeless laugh. So the birthday cake I got from Natalie, the chocolate mousse she said she made herself, turned out to be something baked in the motel kitchen. There is one message that I will never forget. She thinks I'm her sister, but I might actually be the kid's stepmother. I clutched the phone tightly and sat on the floor, my back against the wall. The sick boy was still sleeping peacefully in my arms. I looked down at him and the chill went to my brain. The man I loved so much that I gave up my career. The best friend I trusted enough to confide all my secrets and pains in. They chose each other. Not just physical betrayal, but also the most cruel spiritual betrayal that a woman has ever suffered. I held my son close, tears falling into his hair, but I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I didn't smash the phone. I just sat there, clutching my phone tightly, as if I let go, I would melt into dust. I didn't say anything all morning, didn't wake my husband, didn't text Natalie, didn't do anything. I just sat there, holding the baby in your arms with a heart torn apart, with 100 questions in my head. But none of them answered. My husband woke up around noon and slowly walked out of the bedroom with his usual long yawn. He didn't notice anything different. Didn't notice that I had been sitting in the same spot, in the same pajamas, since before the sun rose. Didn't notice that my eyes were lifeless, and my chin was dry from the tears that had long since dried. He leaned down and kissed me lightly on the cheek, a kiss so familiar that I thought it was proof of love. Then he walked past me and into the kitchen. I heard the refrigerator open, the sound of water being poured, and his voice asking, "Is the baby asleep?" I didn't answer, and he didn't ask back. It didn't feel like pain anymore. It was like I wasn't human anymore. Like I was just an empty shell, a form existing out of duty to the child nestled in my arms. I went upstairs and changed the baby. Everything was mechanical. Mixed milk, coaxed her to take medicine, washed her face, folded clothes, feeding my older daughter lunch. I cooked porridge for my father. He forgot my name again today, but still said, "You have eyes very similar to my daughter's." I almost cried, but the tears didn't come now. They were burned away with this morning's messages. That afternoon, Natalie texted. A single line, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let you know this way." I stared at that message for almost 10 minutes. I didn't reply. I didn't need an apology. I didn't want to hear her justify herself. She knew. She knew every tear I shed for my dad, every sleepless night I spent with my sick kids, every line I told her about my wonderful husband. She knew and chose to do it anyway. I think if she had been a stranger, I might have gone crazy. But Natalie was the person I shared a bed with in elementary school, held hands with when we both lost our mothers, and traveled with my family during our childhood. The person who swore no one will ever break us up. And my husband. He didn't just cheat on me. He saw me kneeling by my father's hospital bed, clutching test results, asking the doctor like a dumb kid, "Is there anything we can do to save him?" He held me when I couldn't breathe from the panic, and he still chose to sleep with my best friend while I was losing my life. That night, I didn't need anything. I sat in my old study, the small room I used to write in, where I wrote birthday letters to my children, my pregnancy diary. It was now just a silent room. I turned on the desk lamp and took out the notebook I kept for daily gratitude. I flipped to the first page, grateful for a supportive husband. I tore it open. I tore each page one by one, page by page. Every memory, every thank you, every love note, I crushed it all. No one knew, no one heard, no one saw me dying in that room. And the scariest thing was, I don't want anyone to know, because a part of me still loves you. That's what makes me disgusted with myself the most. I stayed up all night. No crying, no screaming, just sitting silently looking out the window, waiting for the sun to rise so I could continue to exist without anyone seeing my heart had turned to stone. I will face you tomorrow morning, but today I need the last 24 hours of silence, not to forgive, not to think, but to say goodbye to an old version of yourself. I buried her tonight, along with trust, friendship, and everything I used to call family. The next morning, I woke up early, but this time it wasn't to prepare breakfast, take my kids to school, or prepare medicine for my dad. I get up early because I am ready. I walked into the kitchen where my husband was making coffee, the morning light streaming through the glass doors making everything seem peaceful, if it weren't for the truth screaming in my chest. He smiled when he saw me. "What do you want for breakfast?" I didn't answer. I pulled up a chair, sat down at the kitchen table, and put the phone on the table, the screen still on, with his conversation with Natalie. Her last message. I guess I didn't say anything, did I? Still clear. The smile on his face faded. "You unlocked my phone?" He growled, but not loudly. I looked him straight in the eye. "Does that bother you more than sleeping with my best friend?" He opened his mouth, about to say something, then stopped. I continued. 4 months, right? I took the photo, looked at it for a long time, then gently tore it in half. I'm not the girl in that picture anymore, and I don't want to go back. I needed to become a different version of myself, stronger, more alert, no longer dependent on anyone to survive. The next morning, I took my wedding ring back from the drawer, the one I had taken off after the confrontation, and sold it. I used that money to enroll in an online course on small business and child care. A distant aunt, who used to run a handmade shop for pregnant women, offered to support me in learning a trade and selling online. And so, amidst the ashes of life, I picked up every ray of light, starting over from zero, with hands still shaking and a heart still torn. But this time, I'm not starting over for someone else. I started over for myself. I started over with nothing, 3 children and a father who was slowly forgetting every last memory. No miracle happened. No one, coincidentally, sent money. No angel investor appeared in the middle of the crisis. All I had was a new will, something I never realized I had until I had no one else to lean on. The online small business course took place in the evenings, after the kids were asleep. I learned how to build a website, take product photos with my old phone, and write a copy. At the same time, my aunt showed me how to sew scarves, wool hats, and baby clothes from recycled cotton and spandex. I practiced sewing each stitch, trembling but determined. At first, each product took nearly 3 hours to make. One day, after I finished embroidering the last stitch, my baby cried out in sleepwalking, and my father mumbled my mother's name in his sleep. I was so tired that I fell asleep on the sewing table, but the next morning I still got up, still made, still sold. After the first 3 weeks, I sold 4 items. 4. I looked at that number and laughed through my tears. Others might see it as a failure, but for me, it was a new period, no longer part of the old chapter. Then gradually, thanks to the honest posts, the photos of skinny hands, and the sincere messages, I started to get more customers. A mother sent a message. I almost gave up because of betrayal, but reading your story, I feel like I'm not alone. I read that message over and over again. For the first time in days, I felt valued, not as a wife, not as a daughter, but as an independent person, standing on my own 2 feet. I also took my daughter to an art therapy session for children with separated parents. The older girl drew a family picture, but there were only 4 of us. Me, her little brother, and a newborn baby. I asked, "Where is Dad?" The girl was silent for a moment, then said softly, "Dad made Mom cry. I don't like Dad anymore." I hugged my child and cried, not because of the pain, but because I knew he understood. And that maturity, though I didn't expect it, was the motivation that made me stronger. I started making short videos sharing my entrepreneurial journey, my single motherhood journey, my journey of recovery from the rubble. I am not an expert, but I have the truth. And the truth, even the naked truth, can heal someone sitting in the dark like I once did. A small channel on social media suddenly became a place for me to share, a place where I gradually let go of my fear, a place where other women come together not to complain, but to remind each other not to give up. My father was clearly weakened. In his last days, he could no longer remember my name. But when I put my daughter to bed, he smiled and said, "My granddaughter really looks like her mother." I took his hand, and even though he didn't recognize me, I did realize one thing. He had given me strength without even knowing it. I, the weak girl who once knelt down to beg my husband not to leave me, who once hugged my best friend and cried because I lost my mother, have now become a mother, a pillar, someone who lives for herself and for her 3 young children. I no longer need someone to call me wife to feel valuable. I don't need someone to call me little sister to feel loved. I just need to be myself, someone who lives authentically, lives honestly, and doesn't bow down. My father passed away on a sunny afternoon. He passed away in his sleep, quietly and peacefully, just as he had lived his entire life. When I entered the room, he was still lying there, his hair white, his hand resting lightly on his stomach, as if he were having a beautiful dream. I didn't cry right away. I sat by his bed for a long time, holding his hand, the hand that had held mine through my mother's death, that had taken me to school on rainy days, that had held me when I cried over a stupid bad grade. I whispered, "I did it, Dad. You can rest assured now." On the day of the funeral, I wore the gray dress that my father had praised as the most like my mother's, and brought along my 2 children and my 6.5-month-old belly. A month later, I gave birth to my 3rd child. It was a girl, healthy, rosy, weighing almost 3.5 kilos. I named her Hope. The name is not just a reminder of what I lost, but a manifesto for what I am building. Time passed. My little site began to attract a steady stream of visitors, single mothers, broken women, even wives in questionable marriages. They came to me not to buy anything, but to find themselves in the stories I told. With each order I sent out, I added a handwritten note. You deserve a better life. 1 year after filing for divorce, the court called me to a final hearing. I go alone. Simple, neat, no lipstick. My ex-husband sat across the table, looking more tired and haggard than ever. He avoided my gaze. Natalie was absent. I'd heard that she'd quit her job and moved to another city after the scandal broke out at her old place. My lawyer read the final terms. I have full custody of our 3 children. No child support. I want nothing from him. No money, no house, no apology. Just be left alone. On the way back, I didn't feel relieved. I felt empty. Not because of regret, but because as if a final door had closed, so that I could not, and did not need to, turn back anymore. 2 months later, I was invited to a small conference for women entrepreneurs. The organizers wanted me to share my story, not as an expert, but as a living testament to the fact that women can still rise, even when they have lost everything. I stood on the small stage, holding baby Hope in my arms, the lights shining on my face, and I knew I was no longer the girl I used to be. I told everyone, I used to think I couldn't live without love from others, but it turns out, what I was missing all along was love for myself. I lost my husband, my friend, half my family, but I found something more precious than all of that, myself. And I promise, I will never let myself disappear again. The audience applauded, not loudly, but enough to let me know I had been heard. I don't call this the end. I call it a new dawn. No more you, no more Natalie, just me and 3 kids on the journey ahead. And this time, I choose to live, not for anyone, not to please anyone, but because I deserve it. We, my mother and I, deserve it.